Hello there. I'm here sharing some file management tips as I spring clean through my recordings folder. The first tip that I have is that you should be sorting your projects into subfolders to keep things grouped together for yourself. Secondly, you could take that grouped project folder and turn it into a compressed zip archive. There are many different compression algorithms, each with their own pros and cons. Just see what works best for you. 7-zip and LZMA are both good ways to start. Your CPU will need to do some work to actually compress down the data, and it'll take even longer if you choose the maximum compression ratio like I did. To poorly explain what's going on behind the scenes, consider the phrase laugh out loud. Most people just type LOL, making LOL a key mapped to the phrase laugh out loud that in our heads we expand out. The computer's trying to do that with as many repeating pieces of data as possible and will just reconstruct it later. That said, images, audio, and thus also video are all pretty bad at lossless compression. But that isn't to say there aren't other merits like reducing the total number of files on disk. Moreover, it could be good for version control. In the unfortunate era where we need to prove that content is human-generated, having copies of old revisions could be beneficial. Although I'd be skeptical of uploading those revisions to a service which might use that information to better train their own agents. Although in my experience, multiple revisions of the same project in varying stages do tend to compress rather well together. Oh, it finished. So this is 692.6 megabyte, whereas the uncompressed version is 733.9 megabyte. Right? So it's smaller, but we still have 2 copies of it now. But because we compressed it down, we can get rid of the uncompressed version. Then we're just gonna clean out our trash bin and refresh, and it should drop the total files by 5 or 6. 4 because we added the 1. +1 minus 5. But we take up a little bit less space now. Other benefits to doing that compressed archiving is that when your computer is calculating out file paths for things, it'll just skip over that grouping. It sees the outer directory with most search algorithms, and it could just bypass your archive, which for more complicated projects with a whole bunch of subfiles saves a lot of time in the long run, especially if your computer's just doing routine scans of directories. So aside from grouping things together so they make sense for yourself, and then also compressing things when you're done with them, how about getting rid of things that you aren't going to use at any point in the near future? Not even in the near future, things that you know you're never going to use. I had recorded these clips with the intent of having projects, and going back through after I sorted things, right? I have projects that I already sorted here. I'm not doing anything with these. That's 151 gigs that I'm not doing anything with. From over a year and a half ago now. Why am I holding on to it? That was 3/4 of the space. Same thing. Am I going to use these? Probably not. No, I'm not trying to say that you should get rid of every file that you just haven't touched in a while. If the odds are that you're never going to get back to it, why are you letting it take up space? What do you need it for? Especially when there's such a high premium on the cost of storage these days. I can also use optical media to make a more permanent off-hard drive archive of some of these other archived files, which I know are all part of previously uploaded projects. We'll make a folder for them. I already purged enough. I'm probably going to keep these here regardless. But if you're feeling particularly in the need to keep backups of things. Then you could always write your files to a optical disk using a program such as ImageBurn. Oldie but a goodie. So we should be able to write files and folders to a disk. We'll go ahead and search. I will say that your mileage may vary in terms of using optical storage media. Unfortunately, there is a very large market for counterfeit DVDs, so getting blanks can be difficult. Yes. 81% of the disk. Did I put a disk in? I did not. It's just guessing that it's 81% of a 4 gig disk. Let's get a disk loaded in. Why is my device not being detected? Maybe if I reboot ImageBurn? Okay, found Bluetooth. Okay. Of course, I meant Blu-ray, not Bluetooth. Consumer-grade Blu-ray read and write drives are actually reasonably priced these days. I don't want to give a concrete price just based on how the tech resale market has been recently, and also because I'm not trying to shill a product, but we're talking about like 1/5 the price of what these drives cost a few years ago, at least in terms of what was available to me. Now, optical discs might not be the cheapest or necessarily the most reliable, safest way to store your data, but it is inert and air-gapped after written, with the discs of course being relatively portable. Just be wary of dual-layer DVDs. Alright, and about 29 minutes later, you have your burnt 4 gigabyte DVD. DVD of DVD. Which means I could choose to delete those files if I want. These files if I want. And get them off of this hard drive. Or I could leave them there and keep a backup. Depends how little faith I have in the servers that they're uploaded to. A little bit of file management mindfulness goes a long way at every level, even more so if you're reliant on cloud infrastructure.